Hey everyone, so today I'm in Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area. Excuse me, actually a woodland outside of Middle Creek. Well, not outside, but just up the hill from the lake. And thought I would paint this spring forest scene. Way in the background I can hear the geese. There's probably over 100,000 snow geese in this area right now. I'm not down by them because you can't really get by them. They have it fairly closed off. So I thought I would climb up the hill and look for an interesting woodland scene to paint. Plus it's a little quieter. There's tons of traffic here today. But we're doing this. This is probably a little more than a 6x8 on oil prime linen. And the scene is mostly backlit. So I'm laying down some cools that I can then paint over with some of the warmer tones. But you got to start somewhere. And so these cools I thought would be a good place to start. And then build up the thicker, warmer paint on top of it. We'll see if it works. This is a challenging scene to paint just because it's fairly devoid of any real intense color. And there's a lot of fairly intense highlights going on the autumn leaves. Or not autumn leaves, dead leaves, I should say. By the way, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. That really helps me out. Trying to put out one of these videos about once a week. And knowing that you guys like them really helps encourage me to keep going. By the way, just really quick, my colors: titanium white, cad yellow light, cadmium orange. By the way, that's cadmium yellow light. I use cad for short. Yellow ochre, transparent red oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, viridian, and chromium green oxide. Okay, so we got some tone laid down here I can kind of build upon. So the next thing is to get the trees in there. Now the sun keeps shifting. When I set up, there were some highlights on the edge of the trees that I wanted to put in here. Highlight's pretty much gone, but what I intend to do is it's a perfectly sunny day, though it's a little hazy because it's almost 70 degrees. Actually, it is 70 degrees. So I'm going to look further down in other parts of the woodland area besides what you'll see in the reference photo, just to borrow from those areas and get them in my painting. And I want to get an approximate tree tone here. And my dominant tree, I think, is going to be right here. And then my subdominant tree, I got to be careful where I put these because I want to make sure that I don't have even spaces, evenly spaced trees, or even negative spaces between the trees. So if I put, I thought of putting my next dominant tree right here, but then I'm going to be creating an even space between here and here. So I think I'll put it right about here. Having even spaces and evenly shaped trees and everything is just going to lend for a pretty boring composition. This is a woodland scene, and so basically you're just dealing with a whole bunch of verticals. There's not much else going on, so you have to do what you can to make it interesting. I have another video where I painted some aspens, an aspen interior out in Wyoming, in Grand Teton National Park, and it was the same struggle with that too, just making sure that I created some interest. And it didn't end up looking monotonous with the way the trees are spaced, the shape of the trees and all that. So at the end of this video, go check that one out. But those kind of things are very important. Also, the footing of the trees. The footing is basically where they meet the ground. You want to make sure that you have some variety in that too. And that having interesting footing is going to make it look more three-dimensional. A lot of people, when they're painting something like this, they'll line the trees up all in the same footing, and that lends for a pretty boring, monotonous composition. And don't be afraid to move things around when you're doing this. Especially when you're in a forest like this, it's really nice because you can borrow from so many other things. This is a part right here where, look at it, make sure it's interesting. Don't be afraid to go a little abstract here and there. Just throw in some shapes to make it look more interesting. Don't worry, if those shapes actually represent something that's out there. When you have forest scenes like this, you can have fallen logs and trunks and things like that, all over the place. So you can really just do some abstract stuff and let the viewer use their imagination to kind of fill in the gaps. I want to close up this shape a little bit more. Okay, so now that I have that in there, and composition isn't too bad, I might make some more adjustments to it as I go. Now we can start to worry about more accurate colors and values. Not sure if you can hear the traffic out in the distance. I'm up on the mountain, but there's just so many people here. It's such a beautiful day. It's the first nice day that we've had this spring. And I think especially with COVID and everything, everybody's just itching to get out and do something. There's some moss in here. Going to give some subtle indications of that just to get my color going. Now when I'm looking at this background here, I'm trying to squint at it, not at my painting, but at the scene. Helps me simplify it. If you keep your eyes completely wide open when you're doing this, it can just really overwhelm you. And at this point, you want to keep your paint thin so that if you have to go back in and make adjustments, you're not fighting against a bunch of thick paint. Also, if you're interested in learning painting from me, I do teach live online painting classes. We do it through Zoom. And I take you step by step. We don't paint this fast. But we get together once a week and we do a painting from start to finish. So if you're interested in checking that out, go to my website, jasontako.com, or you can just click on the link in the description below this video, and it'll take you to the page where you can indicate your interest. You probably can't sign up right now because I only let so many students in at a time, but you can go there and sign up, and then I can let you know when there's a spot open, and you can join us if you choose to. We have critique sessions too, which my students really like. We do that once a month where I will take any painting you want, doesn't have to be the class painting, and I will give you live feedback on it. I keep that all anonymous. I mean, students who want to identify themselves certainly can, but I don't say whose painting it is. And all the sessions too are recorded, so if you can't make a live session, no big deal. Just watch the recording later, and that's something my students really like, because not just for people who missed a class, but also for people who want to go back and really look at techniques and things and how they were done. And so go check it out if you're interested. Love to have you there. So right now we're just adjusting values. This is pretty much purely a study in values and in grays. And I have to get some highlights in there soon, because everything's kind of drifting toward a middle value tone. And I need the highlights to really bring these things out. But right now, this is all just about getting approximates to build off of. These colors and values are not perfect, but I need to get something laid down to build off of. So this is the tricky part, getting in the highlights. If I can't make these highlights work, then the painting is kind of doomed to fail. And if I can make it work, I'm going to be really happy and kind of surprised. But if I can't, you're going to get the enjoyment of watching me completely botch a painting. Had some hikers go by, probably wondering who the heck is he talking to. And when I'm doing this, I'm not trying to copy every single streak of light that I see in here. You just drive yourself crazy if you do that. So once again, I'm going for approximates. We're going to take a very impressionistic approach to this. And what I really want when I look at this when it's done is I just want a sense of light. I want the viewer to feel like there's light just raking across this scene. And I don't have to copy every single little thing I see to get that impression. Now, as it goes back, it does darken a little bit and cool a little bit. Actually, I'm not sure if it cools. It actually might warm. It's really hard to tell. But I'm going in with more ochre and alizarin permanent, or alizarin crimson. And let's see if that works. It's a little too rich. Maybe tone it down with a touch of Meridian. Okay, so now switch to a smaller brush. Now that I have some value in there, I want to go in and start making some tonal adjustments. And really trying to make sure that I'm in the habit of squinting at this whenever I look at it. The scene, that is. Don't squint at your canvas, but squint at the landscape. Don't worry about any detail yet. Detail is not your friend at this point. Can actually be a big hindrance. What you want to do is you want to look at this scene and look at your painting and just get this immediate impression of, yep, it looks, the colors and values look correct. It's like we got a helicopter or something flying over. Actually, as we go closer to the bottom here, it gets a little darker. Oops, I got some, picked up some of the light paint there. Some more paper towels. Okay, now I really want to try to get in some of the shadow color there because this is looking really weird to me, and it's such a high contrast scene, and high contrast scenes are very challenging to paint. At least for me they are. Once again, squinting at the scene. Scraping this down, I'm simplifying it because I'm just not happy with it. This could be a failed painting. But there's nothing wrong with doing a failed painting. It's been a long time since I've tried to do one of these woodland scenes like this with these highlights in the grasses, and that's because for me they're very challenging to do, and I'm being reminded of why I usually don't even try to do them. Just a kaleidoscope of color in these leaves. Okay, I'm really not liking this painting now. just don't know how I can handle these highlights. They're just too ambiguous. Too much going on. I'm going to give it one more try. If it doesn't work, I'll probably scrape it. There's probably an impressionistic way to handle this. Just not sure if I have the knowledge on how to do that right now. When I get really quiet like this, it's because I'm really concentrating and struggling. Just realized I don't have any of the highlights on the trees. I'm wondering if I indicate some of these, if that'll help the whole thing to read and to make sense. Sometimes just a littlest thing like that can help. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm not looking directly at what's in front of me, but I'm looking over more toward the side where the light, where it's not so backlit, and the leaves there are a more they have a more solid color and tone to them. They're a little easier to make out. And so I'm kind of borrowing that and making the scene a little more like how it is there, and I might be able to salvage this. Just had some weird bug landing on me. I'm just hoping I can do this before the camera runs out of battery. These batteries do not last long in these cameras when you're out painting. I have an old Canon 7D. I've not been able to afford to get a newer camera. My camera's about 10 years old. That's why if you could subscribe and like, that'd be great, because maybe then someday I can afford to get a better camera. Something a little more up to date. Since I'm getting these highlights in here, as the highlight comes around the tree more toward the shadow area, it gets a little darker, a little warmer. So I'm trying to indicate that. Since I'm getting these highlights in here, it's starting to look better. We may be able to salvage this one. Still not perfect, but of course nothing ever is. Probably should have put these highlights in here much sooner because they're really what's making this whole thing. Okay, so this highlights definitely helped to make this thing read better. Some ambient light picking up here. If I had known this was going to be this challenging, I never would have painted this scene. But it's a good learning experience. I'm not painting this exactly how I'm seeing it. I'm just borrowing things and trying to compose something kind of interesting. Without destroying it, of course. to be careful with these richer tones because they can really knock down the sense of light that you have here. Don't know if I like that shape there. It's a little too much. Okay, I'm just trying to add some little indications of different twigs and branches and randomness. I don't have time to paint in every single detail, nor should you really want to. You just want to capture, the light of the moment. If you get that, then go home happy. I don't know if I've gotten that or not. Sometimes what it takes is for me to get away from the actual scene itself, because you'll sit out here and you'll compare what you're painting with reality, and you can never completely capture reality. You can only capture a suggestion of it. So I have a feeling, even though as I sit here and I compare this to the actual scene and I'm not terribly happy with it, when I get home and look at it, it'll probably be like, you know what, that looks pretty good. Or I might get home and want to throw it away. We'll see. But the biggest importance that you're out here doing it, whether you succeed or fail, that doesn't really matter so much. Plein air painting is about learning. And if you learn something, even if you learn that, dang, that's really hard to paint, I don't know if I'm going to paint it again for a while, that's okay. The success is in the act of doing it and observing nature, not in going home with something you can post on social media and get some thumbs up or something like that, only to have them forget about it 10 minutes later. And like I said, if you want to study oil painting under me, check out my workshops. Once again, it's click on the link below in the description, or just go to my website, jasontako.com, and click on workshops in the menu, and that'll take you to a page where you can put your name in to get on the waiting list. Love to have you there. I love teaching. Like I said, we go a lot more into instruction. I tell you every color I'm mixing, why I'm mixing it, the whole thought process behind it. And it's live, so you can ask questions at any point. And they're recorded, so if you miss a class, no big deal, you can watch it and you get perpetual access to that. Also, I have an instructional blog, mysketchjournal.com. You can check that out. I have a lot of articles about painting and drawing that you might find helpful, especially if you're just starting out. And in the workshop, we take all levels. I have a number of beginners. I have some more advanced students. Like I said, it's really just working on that painting over a 4-week period of time and teaching you all about it. Normally I would do a zoom-in close-up, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm almost done, and this was such a challenging experience for me. I'm out here by myself. There's no cameraman or producer or anything, so hopefully you'll forgive me for that. I don't know if I like that there. Gotta be careful with this stuff. I'm getting a little too carried away with it.